Hey folks, this is the second video in section 8.5, and we're going to be talking about multiplying and dividing polar forms or polar numbers. So if you'll go down then to the gray box that talks about taking the product of complex numbers that are in trig form. All right, so here's what we have. We've got one complex number, and here we have a second complex number. And notice that the following is going to hold true. If I want to multiply these two complex numbers together, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to multiply my radii together. So radius 1 times radius 2. And then notice that I have the basic trig form. I have cosine theta plus I sine theta. The difference here is that I'm adding those two thetas together. If I were using the abbreviated version, this would be, again, radius times radius cis, add your thetas together. That is, to multiply complex numbers, you're going to simply multiply the radii, add the angles. All right, so let's put that into practice then. For example, number 6. Notice that we are asked to find the product of these two trig forms, but then we're also asked to write the answer in rectangular form. So first thing is, let's go ahead and follow what this says to do. We'll do radius times radius, and then we will add our thetas. All right, so radius times radius is going to be 20, and adding our thetas gives us 150 degrees. However, this is a polar form answer. We were asked for a rectangular form. Remember, when you want to go from polar to rectangular, you're going to simply simplify. So let's take our 150 degrees, which is right here on the unit circle. Cosine of 150 is negative root 3 over 2. Sine of 150 is a positive 1/2, so we'll substitute that. We'll distribute our 20. And that'll give us negative 10 root 3 plus 10i. That is the rectangular form. Folks, when you're working in your homework, when you're working on your quizzes, when you're working on your test, make sure you just read the instructions. Sometimes it's going to ask you for polar form. Sometimes it's going to ask you for rectangular form. Just make sure that you read the instructions so that you know how to answer. And then we're also going to talk about quotients of complex numbers in trig form. So again, I have these two complex numbers, and I want to divide them. Notice that the bottom's not allowed to be 0. I want to divide these two. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to divide my radii, and I'm going to subtract my thetas. Here's the abbreviated version. Divide your radii, subtract your thetas. Divide your radii, subtract your angles. Okay, so let's put this into practice for example number 7. First thing we'll do is let's divide our radii, which is going to be 27 over 9, and then we're going to subtract our angles. So 45 minus negative 180, so that's going to be 3 cis 225. Two negs make a positive there. This is polar form. Notice that I am asked for rectangular form. So let's simply simplify. 225 degrees on our unit circle is smack dab in the middle of the third quadrant. And so we've got the cosine of 225 is negative root 2 over 2. The sine of 225 is negative root 2 over 2. And then I'm going to take my 3 and I'm going to distribute. So we have negative 3 root 2 over 2 minus 3i root 2 over 2. And this is the proper rectangular form. All right, folks, that's the last example that I have for this section.